For the past 25 years, I would frequently tell my wife how important it was that I spend time with my dad, because I always feared I wouldn't have him long enough. How incredibly fortunate all of us are to have had Ed Glancy live as long as he did. Tomorrow, his dad's 95th birthday. Tonight we will celebrate his amazing life. We will share some of his stories, some of our stories, and some of his passions. Thank you for being here to celebrate the life of our amazing dad. I'm so glad you're here. Edward Fulton Glancy was born March 26, 1927, to Edward Martin and Elizabeth Rose Glancy in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. He was the younger brother to Mary and Joan, and an older brother to Anne, Joe, and Jim, and raised in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Known as Bud to his parents, Dad to his children, Granddad to his grandchildren, Eddie Glancy, the Fancy Dancer, by Gene Kelly and many of his dance partners, Eddie G and Fast Eddie to his friends. Each of us gathered here this evening can thank our Heavenly Father for using Ed Glancy to make our world a better place and our lives more fulfilled. Dad was fond of talking about GPS, which of course is God's positioning system. He would say that all of us have benefited from GPS, none more so than me. Dad was blessed to have more friends and more family that loved him than anyone else I know. To his many friends gathered here tonight, and the many that have passed on before him, thank you. You made him feel like the most popular man in town. Perhaps the unofficial mayor of Fort Lauderdale. He credited God's positioning system for placing each of you in his life. And he was genuinely thankful for the kindness and friendship you generously shared with him. You made him feel important, special, and loved. This first part's going to be slow, guys.
You're doing great, Mike.
You shared meals with him. You laughed with him. You shared your struggles and your triumphs. You prayed with him. You gave him the gift of true friendship. Dad's life was a symphony of love, faith, adventure, curiosity, sacrifice, kindness, humor, high ideals, dance, music, and poetry. This evening we will attempt to weave this great symphony into his story for all of us to celebrate and enjoy. Kara, Jenny, and Joe, if you'll come up and help me. Early on, we learned a poem called Laska. It's very meaningful to all of us, and we want to share it with you. I want free life, and I want fresh air. And I sigh for the canter after the cattle, and the cracks of whips like shots in battle, and the medley of horns and hoofs and heads, wars and wrangles, and scatters and spreads, and the green beneath and the blue above, and dash and danger and life and love. And Alaska.
Alaska used to ride a masquerade Mustang close by my side, with blue serape and bright-billed spur. I laughed with joy as I looked at her. Little knew she of books or creeds, and Ave Maria sufficed her needs. Little she cared, save to be by my side, to ride with me and ever to ride, from Zanzibar's shore to Lavaca's tide. She was as bold as the billows that beat, as wild as the breezes that blew, from her little head to her little feet. She swayed in her subtleties to and fro. With each gust of passion, a sapling pine that grows on the edge of a Kansas bluff and wars with the wind when the weather is rough, is like this Alaska is the good way. She would hunger that I might eat, take the bitter, and leave me the sweet. But once, when I made her jealous for fun, by something I'd looked at, or seen or done, one Sunday in San Antonio to a glorious girl of the Alamo, she drew from her garter a dear little dagger, and the sting of a wasp, it made me stagger, an inch to the left or an inch to the right, and I shouldn't be maundering here tonight. But she sobbed, and sobbing, so swiftly bound the torn rebozo about my wound that I quite forgave her. Scratches don't count in Texas down by the Rio Grande.
Her eye was brown, a deep, deep brown. Her hair was darker than her eye, and something in her smile and frown, curled crimson lip and instep high, showed that there ran in each blue vein, mixed with the milder Aztec strain, the vigorous vintage of old Spain. She was alive in every limb, with feeling to the fingertips. And when the sun is like a fire, and sky one shining, soft sapphire, one does not drink in little sips.
The air was heavy, and the night was hot. I sat by her side and forgot the herd that were taking their rest. Forgot the air was close pressed, that the Texas northern comes sudden and soon, and the dead of night or the blaze of noon. That once let the herd at its breath take fright, nothing on earth could stop its flight. And woe to the rider, and woe to the steed who falls in front of their mad stampede.
Was that thunder? I grasped the cord of my swift Mustang without a word. I sprung to the saddle and she clung behind, away on a hot chase down the line. And never was fox hunt half so hard, and never was steed so low spared. For we rode for our lives. We shall hear how we fared in Texas, down by the Rio Grande. The Mustang flew, and we urged him on. There was one chance left, and you have but one. Halt, jump to the ground, shoot your horse, crouch under his carcass, and take your chance. And if the steers in their frantic course don't batter you both to pieces at once, you may thank your star. But if not, goodbye to the quickening kiss and the long-drawn sigh and the open air and the open sky in Texas, down by the Rio Grande.
The cattle gained on us, and just as I fell, for my old six-shooter behind in my belt. Down came the Mustang, and down came we, clinging together, and what was the rest? A body that spread itself on my breast, two arms that shielded my dizzy head, two lips that hard on my lips were pressed. Then came the thunder in my ears, as over us surged the sea of steers, blows that beat blood into my eyes, and when I could rise, Laska was dead.
I gouged out a grave a few feet deep, and there in her arms I laid her to sleep. And there she's lying, and no one knows. The summer shines and the winter snows. For many a day the flowers have spread a pall of petals over her head. A little gray hawk hangs aloft in the air. A sly coyote trots here and there. A black snake glides and glitters and slides into a rift in a cottonwood tree. The buzzard sails on, comes and is gone, stately and still like a ship at sea. I wonder why I do not care for the things that are, like the things that were, and as after my heart lie buried there in Texas, down by the Rio Grande. There you go. That was good. I think we all cried about that, Cara Jane, Joe and I, in the last few days. And dash and danger and life and love. We open with the poem Laska because the key elements of the poem remind us so much of Dad. Laska is a story of adventure, love, and sacrifice. Dad's life is full of adventure, love, and sacrifice. From the hills of the Allegheny Mountains to the Taj Mahal, Dad's been just about everywhere. As a 13-year-old Boy Scout, he went with a Boy Scout troop to the World's Fair in New York City in 1940. He told me he joined the Boy Scouts for the sole reason that it was going to the World's Fair in 1940. He claimed that once he arrived in New York City, he ditched the Boy Scouts and explored the city on his own for several days. And if anyone else told me that story, I don't think I'd believe it. But knowing Dad, I suspect it was mostly true. His adventure continued as a 17-year-old high school senior, choosing to trade in the second half of his senior year of high school to serve his country during World War II in the United States Navy. Since Dad was a fantastic athlete, he was the quarterback and middle linebacker on the football team and point guard on the basketball team that played for the Pennsylvania State Championship. Because of that, the Navy chose to assign him to a special unit of Navy frogmen known as Lion 9. He was assigned to special training to learn how to disarm coastal munitions in the hours prior to the invasion of Japan. This involved him swimming from the ship to the shore in the middle of the night with a few simple tools to make it safer for the Marines when they would storm the beaches a few hours later. Hey Joe, can you bring me some tissue?
Got allergies?
Yes, allergies, terrible. Woo! Fortunately, the Japanese surrendered prior to the invasion of the mainland. Dad arrived at the Yokosuka Naval Base shortly after the surrender. He spent nearly a year in Japan as part of the occupational force. During that time, he was assigned to clear hidden weapons from the caves along the coast and later to work in a carpentry shop, building windows to replace all those that had been blown out during the bombing of Japan. He also figured out a way to purchase candy bars and cigarettes from the Navy and then sell them on the black market for a healthy profit. He used those profits when he returned home to pay for, or pay in part, for one sister's wedding and to help another sister pay for her surgery. When the war was over, his mom convinced him to attend St. Francis University. Though academics had rarely inspired him, he earned his degree in economics in 1950. He spent the next 6 years as a salesman traveling the Midwest and Atlantic states. He claims to have been just about everywhere, in every town, hotel, restaurant, and bar along the way. For the nearly 55 years I was blessed to be in his presence, every time he would meet someone new, he would ask them where they were from. And invariably he would say, "Sure, I know it well. I stayed in the XYZ hotel or ate in that restaurant." But always remembering the details of his stay and often the people he met along the way. And I used to think he was full of it. Except for his stories never changed, and you just can't lie for that many years in a row. Extraordinary. His memory was so out of the ordinary, which explains how he seemed to effortlessly commit to memory so much of what you'll be hearing this evening. After 6 long years on the road, Dad knew he needed something different, so he decided to become a Catholic priest. He made plans to join a seminary in Chicago in January of 1957. Fortunately for me and for all of us here, he had a last-second change of heart. And he traded in his Greyhound bus ticket to Chicago for a one-way to Jacksonville, Florida. Late that night, as the bus pulled into Jacksonville, Dad decided he needed to go to the end of the line in Miami. Arriving in Miami with little money, he quickly found a job as a metal salesman for J.M. Toll. In a matter of days, they sent him to Atlanta, Georgia for several months for extensive training to learn everything he needed to know about metallurgy. Which, by the way, he continued to know that for the rest of his life and would pretty consistently tell me about the characteristics of all different kinds of metals, even into his mid-90s. Once the training was completed, his supervisor told him that he would begin his career in Birmingham, Alabama. Dad thanked the gentleman for all the training and wished him luck, then told him he would be going back to Miami. The supervisor objected, telling him the company wasn't ready yet to open the Miami market, and Dad told him that was not his problem. The supervisor relented and told Dad he would go back to Miami and wait for instruction. In the meantime, Dad would get his salary and a company car while he waited. He ended up waiting nearly 2 years. If you're following that, he got paid for doing nothing for 2 years in Miami and his 30-year-old self. That's a good gig. There go Dad. Dad loved fishing in Miami, going out to the nightclubs, fishing for sailfish aboard the Candy Kid, and spending weekends dancing with beautiful women in Havana, Cuba. During the summer of 1961, his brother Jim called and told him that his wife Kathy had friends, Jean and Mary Lane, coming down for a beach vacation. Jim asked him if he would show the girls around Fort Lauderdale. After showing the girls around a bit, Dad took Mary Lane to the Mai Kai for dinner and drinks. Realizing they were both Irish Catholic and wanting a lot of the same things in life, Dad said it would be a good idea if they got married. Mary Lane said okay, but she'd have to tell her parents first. A few months later, on December 2nd, 1961, they were married in Niagara Falls, New York, and that's how our family began. Raising a family became his next great adventure, and I don't believe that anyone could have enjoyed the adventures of being a father more than our dad. He would happily tell you that was his favorite adventure. As Dad progressed through the 12 steps of AA, he was given an assignment to start something and see it through to the end. Harkening back to his youth in the 1930s when he learned to dance from the legendary Gene Kelly, who called him Eddie Glancy, the fancy dancer, Dad enrolled to be a dance instructor with Arthur Murray and dedicated himself to be a great dancer and instructor. Dad loved to dance, and this made him very popular with the ladies. I'm sure his good looks and charm made him all that more popular. At the age of 65, he was hired to be a gentleman host aboard many of the finest cruise ships in the world. He spent the next 10 years sailing the 7 seas, visiting nearly all the great ports in the world and dancing the night away with ladies in beautiful dresses. After 10 years, he decided it was time to jump ship and spend more time with his growing number of grandchildren. He traveled often to Minnesota, California, Georgia, and North Carolina during the next 15 years, enjoying life as a granddad. You'll hear more about his life adventure, sacrifice, and love as we celebrate this evening. Okay, Laska was the longest poem you guys are going to hear tonight. I don't think it was the longest poem he knew, but it was the longest one you're going to hear. So from the longest poem ever taught to us to the shortest, Fleas, Adam had 'em. Ladies and gentlemen, that was one of the first poems I learned, and it's also one of the shortest poem you'll hear tonight. Dad loved to tell this poem because he could teach it to anybody, and it always brought out that great smile of his. So if you've never memorized a poem before, please learn this easy one from our dad. Fleas, Adam had 'em.
Another treasure, a bag of tools. Isn't it strange that princes and kings, and clowns that caper in sawdust rings, and common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, a book of rules, and each must make, ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone.
Each time I read, recite, or hear a bag of tools, I can't help but think about all the stepping stones our dad placed along our path. First and foremost, he helped us build our paths with love, kindness, patience, and encouragement, and acceptance. Mom and Dad generously provided all of us with the opportunity to attend college without incurring debt, supporting us even when our effort didn't warrant the support. I remember all too well getting academically suspended from Santa Fe Community College. That's a 2-year college, and they suspended me after 4 years. I felt like such a failure. But Mom and Dad never gave up on me, only increased their encouragement and taught me what it means to be patient. With their support, I finally got my act together and achieved what they always knew I could. When it was time to buy a house, Dad was there to help each of us with our down payment and much needed appliances, fridges and washers, dryers, everything. What a head start he gave. When I wanted to open my own insurance agency, he was quick to lend me the money I needed to start, telling me I could pay it back when I could and without interest. When I was presented with a great opportunity to grow my business through acquisition, he told me to do whatever I needed to do, and he would lend me $50,000, interest-free, to make it happen. But it wasn't just about me or just about his children. I've witnessed Dad help witnessed Dad help others to stepping stones. All my life. I'm proud of him. Being such a great dad. He was such a great example. Many of you here today can attest to his willingness to help others. Whatever you needed, he was willing to share. Whether it was words of encouragement, an engaged and interested confidant, financial help, or even tough love, Dad was always willing to give. A friend recently told me, this week, he told me of a story of Dad crumpling up dollar bills and throwing them into the bushes near the IHOP on Federal Highway. "Eddie, what are you doing?" he asked. And Dad told him he knew the homeless would eventually find them, and perhaps they would get a meal or a fresh cup of coffee out of it. I've seen him give Dad to the homeless countless times, but I think he liked the anonymity of leaving money for the less fortunate to find, knowing there's something about finding treasure that must feel better than asking for handouts. Soon after Dad became sober, he purposefully asked himself an extremely important question every single day. And he wrote down his answer to that question every single day for decades, so that he was accountable to what was important to him. That question was, what did I do for someone else today? Because of Dad, many of you here ask yourself that question every single day. And because of that question, and his willingness and encouragement to share with others, there are untold acts of kindness and service spreading out in every direction from this community. Wouldn't it be amazing if all of us asked ourselves at the end of each day, what did I do for someone else today? If you wish to honor Dad's memory, I can't think of a better way than to ask yourself each evening, what did I do for someone else today?
The true gentleman. The true gentleman is the man whose conduct proceeds from goodwill and an acute sense of propriety, whose self-control is equal to all emergencies, who does not make the poor man conscious of any poverty, the obscure man of any obscurity, or any man of his inferiority or deformity, who is himself humble if necessity compels him to humble another, who does not flatter wealth, cringe before power, or boast of his own possessions or achievements, who speaks with frankness but always with sincerity and sympathy, whose deed follows his word, who thinks of his own rights and feelings of others rather than his own, and who appears well in any company, a man with whom honor is sacred and virtue safe. Growing up isn't easy, but the two best teachers I've ever had on becoming a man have been my father and his father. I miss my granddad a lot.
Dad found this passage in a book I left on the kitchen table while home from college. It was something I was trying to memorize. And naturally, he memorized it before I did. He used to tell me about addressing his friends in the men's independence group as true gentlemen. He wanted to know that they should behave and conduct themselves at all times like the true gentlemen he knew they were. And Dad lived his life as a true gentleman.
Hi, I'm Laura Glancy. I'm Mike's wife, obviously. I'm going to read an Irish funeral prayer. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. The old life that we lived so fondly is untouched, unchanged. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way, which you always used. Put no sorrow in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed, at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effort, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute, unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind? Because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere, very near, just around the corner. All is well, nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before, only better, infinitely happier. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. I think a lot of you know that Mike talked to his dad a lot. Very, very frequently. And there was one word that always came up every time he talked, and it was the word wonderful. Everything we did was wonderful. He just used it a lot. That's how Ed approached life. And it's my favorite word for him because he was wonderful. He was a wonderful father, wonderful grandfather. He was my father-in-law, but he was really my father. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Yes. On August 9th, 2009, Dad wrote to me the following. I hope you will use the Irish funeral prayer someday, way in the future, for your old man. It really says what most of us believe. Dad used to tell me that just because a ship had sailed over the horizon and we're limited by our sight to see it, it doesn't mean the ship is gone. It's just beyond our current limitations. And so it is that Ed Glancy is not gone. He's just only beyond the horizon. Someday, hopefully way in the future, we will shed our aging and imperfect vessels and be reunited with our loved ones over the horizon. It is this belief which brings me hope. It makes it possible to bear the heartache of not being able to hold his hands, hear his voice, draw from his wisdom, or look into his beautiful blue eyes. I will be with him again. He is waiting for me, just over the horizon. This prayer reminds me of another prayer that he shared with me often. God, give me the wisdom to discern just where I am needed, and grant nobody's cry for help to me shall go unheeded. Let me see into the hearts who hide their deepest pain and show me how to say the words to bring them hope again. Lord, you have given me so much, and now I want to share the love with which you shower me with people everywhere. And though I bring nothing into the world, and that is how I'll leave it, may all my acts ring out with faith, the way that I believe it. Charlie, I think you're up.
Hey, everybody. This is one of countless things I've heard from many times that he could just recall and just go right through without even thinking twice. It's called attitude. How about now? The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. I asked Mike if I could say a word, and I thought about this ever since Eddie died. And I was, anticipating having a moment. And I realized that all of us in this room could stand up here for an hour and still never do him justice. It would be impossible. So I thought, what's the one thing? One time, he actually said, I think you're one of my closest friends. What an honor. I admired him so much. For him to say that, it was just incredible. But the one thing that he was consistent about was the generosity of his spirit. He would treat the homeless guy, as you mentioned, or a president with the same respect. He never talked down to anybody. At least I never saw it, I never heard it. He never talked in a bad way about anybody. If he spoke about you, whatever it was, it would always be the one thing that he thought was your best achievement or your best characteristic, and that's how he would describe it. Never any negatives at all. And the one word he always used when describing somebody was wonderful. So, thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Jenny Lake. He's close to it.
My remarkable, beautiful family. My remarkable, beautiful, loving family. They are my accompaniment to every breath I take. They make my life a symphony of love. To the arranger, conductor, creator of the universe, I prostrate myself in gratitude. My head rests on my pillow. I turn off the lamp behind my bed, close my eyes, and try not to smile.
Dad is famous for taking notes. He would hear something, see something, think of something, he'd scribble it down so that he could reference it again. Then he would stuff these notes into his shirt pocket or into the book he was reading. I searched the internet for the words penned on this note that I had found. It doesn't seem to exist, which leads me to believe this amazing, beautiful love letter to his family was his original thought, which comes as no surprise. He loved and cherished his family as much as any man. His character, his love, and his dedication to family was an example that shaped the character and love of family of his 4 children. his 4 children share. I see it alive and thriving in Kara, Jenny, and Joe, and I am beyond proud to be cut from the same cloth as my siblings. Tom Pfister, you are up.
Hi, I'm Tom Pfister, Ed's son-in-law, Kara's husband, and I took Ed flying about 2002. We went from Minneapolis to Brainerd, and it was a nice sunny day, and Ed was very brave on that flight, I thought. And every time that Ed would call the house, the first thing he would ask me was say, "Tom, how you doing? Have you been flying lately?" So he knew, and Ed really liked flying and had an affinity for aviation. I think he jumped out of an airplane just about 3 years ago.
Yes.
So I'm going to recite High Flight. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-slit clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung the craft through footless halls of air. Up, the lawn Valeria's burning blue, I've topped the windswept height with easy grace, where never lark or ever eagle flew, and while with silent lifting mind I trod the high unsuppressed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
Dad loved high flight. I'm sure flying appealed to his adventurous ways.
Mike, is it possible that I say a word?
Yeah, come on.
So,
Hello. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name is Patrick Sherray. Uncle Ed was my great uncle, sister, or brother of my grandmother, Mary Glancy. And my family has traveled down here to, meet all of you wonderful people. And I didn't plan on coming up and speaking, but seeing the crowd, I felt compelled to come up and say a few words and share a little bit of my experience with Uncle Ed. So I'm 38 years old, so I've known him for 38 years. And I am an alcoholic. I first went to prison 13 years ago. And I didn't want my mother to come and see me.
Come here. I know just how you feel.
But I want to share the story with you guys. I didn't want my mother to come and see me. Uncle Ed came and visited me in jail first time I went to jail. And may I say now, well, I am married. I made 6 figures last year. I'm happy. Life is good. Life is good. So, and when he told me in that state was, Pat, you're not a failure. You're down right now, but you're not out. And I'll never forget him, Uncle Bob, we're talking through a telephone through glass while I'm in prison garb. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget the encouragement that your dad gave me at that point. And me and your dad and Uncle Ed, we continue to have a fantastic relationship. And he went to the grave, unfortunately, with me owing him money. Like, he owed me, like, I'm sure maybe some other people in this room, possibly. I don't know. He was very generous, but his words of encouragement and his spirit of optimism and letting me know that I was down, but I wasn't out. And I never, ever forgot that. And I just want to share that with this room.
God at work. Using Dad, for sure, and using Patrick. Dad loved his poem, High Flight. I'm sure flying appealed to his adventurous ways. But when he got engaged to my mom, her only condition was that he never become a pilot, because her father had been a pilot. Once he made that promise is when he made it his mission to get it out of his system before the wedding. He immediately signed up for flying lessons at North Perry Airport. He loved the feeling of flying, practicing takeoffs and landings, climbing to a stall and then regaining control as the plane dove. On October 12, 1962, less than 2 months from his wedding, he completed his first solo flight. He continued to fly for the next 6 weeks, hoping to get the thrill of flying out of his system before the wedding. He was true to his word and never flew a plane again while he was married. However, sometime in his 60s, he was asked if he would like to ride on the Goodyear blimp, and he eagerly accepted. Once airborne and above Fort Lauderdale, the pilot asked him if he'd like to take over controls. Dad was thrilled and said yes, although he wished it would go fast. Dad often looked at the skies and pointed to the birds and exclaimed that they were just showing off. He loved flight, free of the bonds that hold our bodies to the ground. His soul took flight not so long ago. I'm sure he's doing loop-de-loops, steep climbs and sharp descents in heaven now. And of course, he hovers above us, keeping a close eye on all those he loves. Peyton.
Hi, I'm Peyton. I'm going to recite The Little Elf Man, and I'm sure many of you have heard this one. Even reading it, I hear his voice in my head and hearing the one who's in the hand. I met a little elf man in the woods, the wee-est little elf. He was sitting upon a mushroom stall that was taller than himself. How do you do, little man? I said. What do you do all day? I dance and frolic about, said he. I scuttle and I play. I surprise the butterflies, but the katydid I see. Katy didn't, I said. But he said, Katy did with me. Then I swing on the cobweb, swing up in the air so high, and the crickets chirp and hear me sing Upsy Daisy Die. Then I play with the baby chicks. I call them chick, chick, chick. What do you think of that? Said he. I said, it makes me sick. It gives me sharp and shooting pains to listen to such drool. So I picked up my foot and squashed the little darn fool.
Dad taught the little elf man to all of us when we were little kids. I remember how surprised I was that the little elf man got squashed. I was even more surprised that my dad said, darn, which I knew was awfully close to damn. And we love this poem. It's whimsical and sweet, up until it isn't. David Opticar, would you come up?
Do you fear the force of the wind, the slash of the rain? Go face them and fight them. Be savage again. Go hungry and cold like the wolf. Go wade like the crane. The palms of your hands will thicken. The skin of your cheek will tan. You'll grow rugged and weary and swarthy, but you will walk like a man. Mike was kind enough to let me take just a moment to share just a thought I had. And much like Charlie, I could go on and on and on. Family. Eddie loves his family. He would speak of them sweetly, frequently, and always with a sense of just deep love and appreciation. He'd say to me, you know, Dave, I'm the luckiest guy around. I've got 4 great kids that love me. And he would tell me how they would talk once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day. And I don't know many families that do that. And so it makes me think that something that they gave him was very special also. And so I am touched by that because as a an older dad with a 12-year-old, you know, it's giving me a sense of how that works. And he left that imprint on me. And the other thing that always struck me so vividly is that whenever we would talk, whenever I'd call him or he'd call me, the first thing out of his mouth was, "So Dave, how are you? How's your daughter doing? How's your wife? How are you guys getting along?" Not about what he wanted to say, but how are you? And I just think that's just such a unique, rare quality. And I know today that he's here with us. I believe that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
You'll grow rugged and weary and swarthy, but you'll walk like a man. I hope as long as I recite this poem, I'll be able to hear Dad's voice in it. He loved to tell it. He perfected the rhythm and gravelly sound required to deliver it authentically. Dad's hands were thick. They were big and strong right to the end. Perhaps they got big and strong when he worked in a steel mill as a teenager, shoving black coal into carts. As kids, we would play with him in the swimming pool. He would grab us with those big hands and spin around in the pool with us as our bodies skipped across the top of the water as he spun. He called them whirligigs. It wasn't until I had children of my own that I realized just how much strength that took, especially as we got bigger. He loved playing in the pool with us. I remember being on his back in the deep end of the pool, grabbing a hold of his neck, and we took a deep breath, and he plunged beneath the surface, and he would take us to the shallow end and back before coming back for air. And when we did surface, I'd ask him to do it again. Between the whirligigs and the underwater rides, going for a swim with your kids had to be pretty exhausting, though I never heard him say anything about it. He was rugged and swarthy and beautifully tanned. He was a man's man through and through. I do not think he feared the force of the wind or the slash of the rain. He'd been hungry and cold like the wolf and waited like a crane, facing his fears and defeating his demons, set an example to his children. And many of you here tonight. In the final hours, the 4 of us held those hands as we prayed with him and sang his favorite songs. I like to think that when he let go of our hands, he was already in the hands of God. In the company of all he loved. That had gone on before. Big Chris, will you come up?
Wow, what a room. You guys clean up pretty good, don't you? Mike, where did I hop?
Right, yes.
Acceptance. And this is one of Eddie's favorite things to read, and Mike told me to read this and say a few words, so I will. Acceptance is the answer. This is hard.
Yes.
Today, there was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony with heartfelt language from everyone there. I felt yours and Jenny's and Tara's and everybody there. Joe's was just beautiful. And Tara's It was at the church, and there were a couple hundred people there. Yes, I don't know how many people were there, but it was just magnificent. And this is about acceptance, is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed is because I find some person, place, or thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. You know, I tell you, Eddie was my sponsor. He would have been sober 40 years in November, I believe. I'm sober today, 36, God willing, by the grace of God, and a great fellowship of men and women. And you know, he taught me so much. We had lunch every Friday after our meeting. I remember many years ago, I took a picture of Eddie. We'd have lunch at Runway 84, beautiful little restaurant on 84. Great food. Eddie liked to eat. We had a lot of fun there. I took a picture of Eddie and I, and they had these pictures of Runway 84 runways from all over the country. And one day I texted a picture to Mike before I really got to know Mike. And immediately got a text back on my phone, "Who are you and where's my father?" And we were laughing our heads off. You know, said, "Well, we better call him right away because he's really thinking somebody kidnapped his dad or something." You know, it looked like we were in an airplane. So, anyways, one of the things that we talked about, and Eddie was a Renaissance guy, and one of the things we used to talk about was "Welcome to Mountain Crossings." It's written by Henry David Thoreau. And it says, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in calm hours. He will pass invisible boundary. He passed it when he was going to go to Chicago, that bus, into Jacksonville. He would turn on a dime, and then he went to Miami. It's amazing. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him, and he will live life with the license of a higher order of beings. Eddie lived that life. When I was involved down at the Bar Association one day, he gave me a call. I said, "What are you doing, Chris?" I said, I just picked up this beautiful mango. We have a mango tree there. We did before it got blown down with the last storm. I said, "The most beautiful mango you'd ever see." And Eddie was a man of means. He could have whatever he wanted. He said, "Oh yeah?" He came down to the Bar Association. I went home. He called me later and said, "Guess what I have?" I said, "A mango." He said, "Yes, I got one on my very hand. I went to the Bar Association and found one on the ground. And while I was there, he got, I think, a journal and sent it to, I think, his daughter. And, you know, it was interesting. He was so amazed and so in tune with simple things. He didn't need great wealth. He didn't need all of that. He had a beautiful life. And from what I understand, he had a beautiful death. Yes, he would have been 95 tomorrow. Mike told me how beautiful it was to be surrounded by his family on his final prayers and songs and poetry and laughter and crying. Holding hands in his silence, the prayer, his favorite prayers as he went out. Wow, what a beautiful ending to a beautiful life. I'm so moved by it. Thank you for letting me be part of this, and what a beautiful family. Thank you all.
Thank you. Kevin Pfister.
There was a very cautious man who never romped or played. He never smoked, he never drank, and he never kissed a maid. And when he passed away, insurance was denied, for since he never lived, they claimed he never died.
Dad taught me this when I started my career as an insurance agent. As all of you know, Dad wasn't a very cautious man. He romped, he played, he smoked, he drank, and he kissed many a maid. He lived life to the fullest, to which no one can deny. I'll never forget the morning he called me back in 2016. After discussing the pleasantries of the day, he said to me, "Mike, I did something today you may not be too happy about." "Okay, Dad, what did you do?" "I jumped out of a plane this morning." "Huh?" He was 89. "Huh, Dad, I don't understand what you're trying to say." "Mike, I jumped out of a perfectly good working airplane this morning. I thought about asking you if I could do it first, but that thought you would probably say no, so I did it without saying anything." "Wow, Dad, are you okay?" "Of course I'm okay. It was the thrill of a lifetime. I've always wanted to go skydiving. And what the heck? If the parachute didn't open, well, at least I would have had a long, wonderful life and a quick death at the end." He proceeded to tell me all the details. My old man went skydiving at age 89. He loved adventure, and he wasn't afraid to face his fears. He loved living. His 2 older sisters and his younger sister and 2 brothers had passed well before him, along with nearly all of his high school buddies. Mr. Hansel, we're so glad you're here today. Thank you for coming. Class of 1945, it really means a big deal that you're here. Thank you.
Do you want them there now?
No, I just want to say thank you for coming.
Wait.
Dad used to wonder why he lived so much longer than everyone else. He would usually answer his own question by saying, I guess I just love life so much. And somehow, God knows, I'm not ready to go yet. Jenny Pfister, you're up.
As we all know, Granddad lived a life of adventure and encouraged us all to live courageously and take risks. When I was a freshman at the University of Wisconsin, I was visiting Fort Lauderdale for my spring break, and we were sitting in his red convertible when he almost convinced me to leave college and travel the world on a cruise ship. He said it would be good for my education, at least the one that mattered. When you take risks and live a life of adventure, that sometimes means you don't always know exactly where you're going. But that is when God's positioning system kicks in. And I think that's what this prayer is about. This is Thoughts of Solitude by Thomas Merton. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean I'm actually doing so. But I believe the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Thank you.
Dad made sure our family went to Mass every Sunday morning. I'd be lying to you if I told you it was what I wanted to do, especially as I became a teenager. However, he always made Sunday mornings fun, too. After Mass, we would usually go out for a nice breakfast, followed by a visit to the Navy ships and submarines in Port Everglades, where Dad was usually able to get us a private tour because he was a Navy man himself. We'd go to the harness racetrack to watch the horses get exercised. go on picnics in the park or at the beach. It was often during these car rides he would teach us the many poems and inspirational verse he loved so much. Or we would play the soundtrack to The Sound of Music, 8-track, in his Lincoln Mark 7, and do a family sing-along to the whole musical. To this day, I can't turn the channel if The Sound of Music is on TV. The warmth of those happy family memories is just too good to pass up. Marlene?
Hi, everyone. This was a piece that Eddie read or recited almost at least weekly in our morning meeting. And it's one of my favorites. Be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts become your words. Be careful of your words, for your words become your deeds. Be careful of your deeds, for your deeds become your habits. Be careful of your habits, for your habits become your character. Be careful of your character, for your character becomes your destiny. You know, when I think of Eddie, he's like the father I never had. I met him like 10 years ago at my morning meeting. And when I'd pull into the meeting and I'd see his car, my heart always lifted because I always loved to see him. You know, he never said an unkind word about anyone. I never heard him complain. He was always generous with his time and his wisdom. He had such a generous spirit. And he always had a glint in his eye. He always had a smile on his face. And he used to write little inscriptions in the meeting. You know, when I'd have challenges and I'd share about it, he would write notes in the meeting and pass them to me. I saved them all. One time he wrote me one on a styrofoam coffee cup. You know, he was just a real father figure to me. And when he used to compare me to Kara and Jenny, I thought that was just the kindest compliment he could give me because I knew his children were amazing. I didn't even know you, but I knew because he was extraordinary. I often tried to fix him up with my mother, to no avail. I even brought her to his assisted living facility with my aunt, and he entertained us. We went to happy hour. He actually got up and danced with one of the aides. It was one of my last visits with him, to watch him dance. Eddie Glancy, fancy dancer. It was precious. And the day before he died, we were lucky. A few of us were able to go visit him. And Mike and Kara were there. And I got to hold those big hands and say goodbye to him. And he is with all of us. We will carry him in our hearts. I know I will. He's made such an impression on me, and so is his family. And I'm grateful to have known him. Thank you.
Jimmy Pfister, you are up.
A wise old owl lived in the oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be all like that bird?
Another favorite Dad repeated often, but not as often as this one. Maggie, you're up. Close to that.
Hi, we good? Closer.
We good?
Yes.
Twas brilliant, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mummy raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my daughter, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jub-jub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. She took her vorpal sword in hand, long time the manson foe she sought. So rested she by the tum-tum tree, and stood awhile and thought. And as in uffish thought she stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. She left it dead, and with its head, she went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish girl. O Frabjeste, Kulu Kaloi, Dad chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe. I'll mimsy with the borogoves, and the mummy wraths outgrabe.
Many of you will recognize the Jabberwocky from the children's classic Alice in Wonderland. We learned the Jabberwocky from an early age. I don't think Dad realized this poem could be scary to a 5-year-old. For years, I wasn't quite sure if the boy had slain the Jabberwocky or the Jabberwocky had slain the boy. And I'm not sure why I didn't ask him. It's a great poem, and Dad had mastered the delivery just like Maggie mastered that one. About 10 years ago, he performed the Jabberwocky to perfection at the Glancy Family Talent Show in Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. Most of you know Dad spent the last 2 weeks of July with his family in Ocean Isle for the past 50 years. In 1972, his siblings Mary, Joan, Ann, Joe, and Jim decided they needed to have a place where they could meet each year so their families wouldn't drift apart by all the distance separating them. With family in Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Florida, they decided Ocean Isle was perfect. Because of their love of family, Kara, Jenny, and Joe and I were privileged to grow up getting to know our big, wonderful, amazing family. Our grandparents have 24 grandchildren, each one of them a bright star in the universe. Spending time with them each summer is one of the great gifts we've ever received. The oldest of our cousins is 72. The youngest is 50. Combined, our grandparents have 68 great-grandchildren and 49 great-great-grandchildren, with hopefully many more to come. Together with all their spouses and significant others, our Glancy family reunion can get quite large. Seeing many of them only 1 week a year, it's hard to remember everyone's name, and yet somehow our Dad remembered everyone. He loved being an uncle, and his nieces and nephews clearly loved him. He kept in touch with just about everyone. Sometimes we would have well over 100 members of the extended Glancy clan in Ocean Isle. Every year, a party would be held at someone's house, and we would all crowd in together. Often that party would include the best talent show on earth. Think of it, we're all Irish. We can play instruments, we can sing, we can dance, we can tell stories, and we can drink. These talent shows are legendary. There have been hundreds of skits in the first 50 years. My personal favorite was probably in 1977, when Kara, Jenny, Joe, and I sang Honey Bun from the musical South Pacific. Either Kara or Jenny thought it would be cute to dress up 8-year-old Joe in a straw hula skirt and a coconut bra for his dance routine, as we sang 101 Pounds of Fun. That's our little honey bun. It was epic. I'm sure he's thrilled I'm sharing this with you today. Family vacations in Ocean Isle are not cheap, especially because we spend 2 weeks renting really nice beach houses, large enough to accommodate our immediate family. There's 26 of us. Dad took care of the bills for close to 30 years. As Joe and I got older and our business became more established, we would ask Dad if he wanted to transfer the financial burden of Ocean Isle to Joe and I. His response was classic Dad. He said the greatest investment he ever made was the money he spent bringing his family together every year. Joe and I eventually took over about 20 years ago. And we feel the exact same way. It's not cheap, but bringing our great family together is the best thing we can invest in. Our great big Glancy family reunion in Ocean Isle began in 1972. As far as I know, Dad and I hold the record for never missing a single year. That's 50 straight years. This year I will take over the lead with my 51st, God willing, though I am certain His Spirit will be with us. I could spend the next several hours telling great family stories from Ocean Isle, but there's so much more to cover. Mr. John Daniels. Oh, it's no, yeah, Scott Leggett's first. Sorry about that. Laura, do you have it with you? I think my other book has it. The green book? Yeah, you're next. This one's out of order. Do you have it on there? You're at the top. I didn't print that.
Hi, I'm Scott Leggett. I'm Jenny's husband, and I think I was Eddie's favorite son-in-law. Actually, I'm just teasing Tom. I'm not sure if he actually liked me. Actually, anybody who knows me knows that I'm married well above my pay grade. Many years ago with Jenny, married a rock star. You know, when you're young, you're running around, you're not, you don't think about a lot of stuff. You look back and you look at double blessings, and one of the double blessings that I had was my in-laws, all including Mike and Joe and Karen. Yeah, Mike, you too. But even Mary Lane. But Eddie G was quite special. He was, who could be. I was quite blessed to have a father-in-law like Eddie G. I mean, he was really fun hanging out with, and so I feel extremely blessed. It was easy to talk to him because we were aligned, politically and philosophically, and he was just, all these poems that you guys have heard and all the stories you've heard over and over, and they never get bored. Eddie G was one of the most positive guys I ever met. He was also a man of action. If he decided he was going to do something, you guys have heard that theme. He just did it. I mean, he made his mind up and he just did it. Just like when he jumped out of the plane, he wasn't gonna take no for an answer, and he just did it. So, Mike asked me to talk about See You at the Top. I've heard Eddie talk about this, and it was Zig Ziglar. I think Eddie liked See You at the Top because Zig Ziglar was one of the most famous salesmen out there. He also had some really good philosophical, values that Eddie aligned with. So I thought I'd read, just a few of them. I mean, there's a lot about this, but just some of the ones that I liked. The first one, the only difference between a big shot and a little shot is that the big shot simply is a little shot who kept shooting. Another one is you can get everything in life you want if you help enough other people to get what they want. The way you see life will largely determine what you get out of it. What you get by reaching your goals is not nearly as important as what you become by reaching them. Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you will always be able to see further. We acquire the characteristics of people we associate with on a steady basis. And the last one I'll say, again, there's a lot to go along with this, is that success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. My kids have heard me talk about this a lot, and I think that, really resonates with me. So, one of the things that I heard Eddie G say a lot is fate is the hunter. And so what I think he meant by that was that, what you've heard the theme is that you can't, control what happens to you in life. But as I think it was Charlie when he read that poem earlier, the comments earlier, is that it's you can't control, fate's the hunter. You can't control what happens to you, but you can certainly control 100%. How you react to it, and that to me was Eddie G. I mean, he was. When I think of him, that's how I think of him. He was just a really positive guy, and he just believed that his attitude was everything. So on your tables, you'll see a little yellow card that I actually had made up in honor of him. And there's an older version of this in my hands right here that I've carried either in my wallet or either in my car or my desk. And it's the one I have is crooked, it's laminated, but Eddie gave it to me about 30 years ago. And it's meant a lot to me. He handed this out to a lot of people. I've showed Joe said he had it. He just would do stuff like this and hand it out. So I thought it'd be really cool because it's meant so much to me to hand it out. So they're thrown around there on the table. They're the yellow versions. So I believe God rewards. The last couple of comments I'll make is that I believe God rewards us in heaven for all the actions that we do here on earth, and those blessings get multiplied by the ripple effect that you have on people. And Eddie had a ripple effect on a lot of people. So I believe he'll be blessed for many, many years to come in heaven because of that ripple effect. God will continue to bless him, and he's going to be living high on the hog in heaven for everything that he's done here on earth. And so, Eddie G, for all that you've done for me, I say thank you. All that you've done for all of our families, I say thank you. And for all that he's done for the community, I say thank you.
John, you're now up.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to everybody speak, and Charlie, I have to really tell you that Eddie told me over and over that I was his best friend. And so, but as I go through that, I know each and every one of you can sit here and feel that you were his best friend, because that's how he made us feel, each and every one of us. On December 21st of 2021, I had lunch with my wife, Catherine, and Eddie at Shooters, not knowing that it was close to the end. And Eddie said he wasn't really hungry, which kind of was his MO with us, where he would ask and he said, I'll split something with somebody. Catherine and he would split a dinner. But Eddie would also always, sorry if you can't hear, but he would always have room for this wonderful, and if anybody ever goes to Shooters, please try it. It's called the Bananas Foster bread pudding flan, which was our favorite. We'd always get an extra scoop of ice cream, and we would demolish it, which we did on December 21st. His appetite would always increase when it came to dessert. We knew he loved his desserts, as I know the family members can all attest to. And I have many, many, many more stories, which, thank goodness, I knew. Before I met the family, I knew the family because of Eddie. He would go over and over again and professed his absolute love for those kids. And I can only say it's nice to have met them finally, and all of you people. And with that, this is one that we in AA know very, very well. But this was Eddie's. But he, as would know, I heard all those poems before, but Eddie would just keep going on and on. And this one goes, Eddie took it to the hill. This is the serenity prayer, which he said, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's where most of us stop, but not Eddie. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace. Taking as he did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. That I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever. Thank you. All right, you're up.
Well, my dad did love his desserts. And John, I'm so glad you mentioned Bananas Foster, because I have to think of my Uncle Jim and his brother, and when he got an honorary doctorate. And my father was so proud, and he flew up from Florida, and we all got to go to this wonderful ceremony for my amazing Uncle Jim, who I'm also going to talk about in just a moment. I can't say enough, actually, about all of Dad's brothers and sisters. I know we can't be here all night, so I will try and keep it short. The Bananas Foster reference, though, is at the dinner that was given at St. Francis. Dad said, we can stay for dinner, Kara, but we have to leave. We have to leave because my plane leaves out of Washington National at 6 o'clock tonight, so we cannot stay for the full dinner. We're gonna have to leave. And we sat down to dinner, and what was on the menu for dessert? Bananas Foster. I'm glad not to be in the state of Pennsylvania when I tell you how fast we drove back to Washington National. But this is kind of a good lead-in, because what I'm about to read right now is very short. And actually, I'm reading it. Dad recited it so often, but I'm afraid if I start to recite it, then I will. So this was the prayer that our grandmother said. They had 2 bedrooms in their house. There were 6 children. So Jim, Joe, and my father shared one bed. And then Mary and Ann and Joan were in the other room. And Grandma would read them bedtime stories every night, Treasure Island and all kinds of wonderful Irish fairy tales. I know she had books all through the house. And the prayer that Uncle Jim, not prayer, the poem, one of the last times I was with my Uncle Jim, he cooked dinner for my husband and I. Megan, I believe you were there with us. And Uncle Jim's recited poetry, like my dad did, and that's in fact why we're reciting so much tonight, because the whole family could recite poetry. I'm going to give you a short stanza from Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim, stanza concluded from a long poem. Chests of silver and gold have thee, but I have a mother who read to me. And I've always thought that was so beautiful. But after she would read them bedtime stories, she would bless them before they went to bed with this simple prayer. There are 4 corners on this bed. There are 2 pillows spread. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Bless the bed these children lay on. And those children have given all of us. In our family, my cousins have always welcomed us as siblings. We are so blessed to be part of this beautiful Glancy family. Thank you.
Dad's mother, Elizabeth Rose Farrell Glancy, was always a rock in his life. She loved him so much, and he loved her so much. Dad told us that when he was 5 years old, his mother gave him a dime to spend at the Ferndale Jubilee, which was quite a lot of money back then. When he got to the Jubilee, he saw a blue bead necklace. He thought immediately of his mother and how much he loved her and wanted her to have those beads. He bought them and ran home to give them to her. And she made such a fuss about how beautiful they were and how much she loved them. She wore them proudly for many years. As Dad got older, he figured out that they were just cheap blue beads, but she wore them as if they were the finest string of pearls. Just as Dad started his life with his mother praying for him over his bed, so too it was when Dad passed to his heavenly home on January 4th. I'm sharing the deeply personal story of his passing with you today because it's beautiful. After I arrived on the evening of January 2nd, he said to me, "I'm so glad you're here." He rested that evening and all of the next day. Jenny and Joe arrived the evening of the 3rd. Kara and I explained when they arrived that Dad had slept the entire day and was pretty much unresponsive. As darkness fell, Kara and Jenny suggested we sing some of his favorite songs to him. So we began to sing. "Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me." As we started to sing, his eyes opened wide for the first time that day. He began to move his lips as he tried to sing along. He held tight to our hands, so we kept singing. "When Irish eyes are smiling on a bicycle built for two, I see the moon and the moon sees me. I'm back in the saddle again. Let there be peace on earth. 101 pounds of fun, that's my little honey bun. Some enchanted evening. God bless America." And then we prayed the prayer of St. Francis. As we finished, Dad drifted off again. All 4 of his children holding his hands. And giving to him the full expressions of our love. Those were his last moments of consciousness. There was no struggle, no pain, no confusion, only love. The next day was January 4th. It was his dad's birthday. He slipped quietly away as he hurried off to be with his Father in heaven, in time to make a grand entrance to his dad's heavenly birthday party. His mom, dad, brothers and sisters, and I think thousands of loved ones and friends from his stay on earth were there to greet him. It provides great comfort. I miss him. Grace, I need you to light the room.
Yeah, Grace.
So I begged my dad to have this one,
because Granddad, when I was 9, after asking, how was school today, and, how are your friends, he would always launch into this poem. And I think the last time I really needed help remembering it, I was 12. I'm almost 26, and I still remember this. So, 1 large horse, a couple of ducks, 3 black bears, 4 running hares, 5 fickle females, 6 Siamese sailors sailing the 7 seas smoking cigarettes, 7 simple Simons, 8 elevated elephants elevated on an elevator, 9 nibbling nubligants nibbling on gnats, 10 two-tone transcontinental trucks traveling toot-toot-toot to Tucson. Something I just want to add about Granddad, of the many things I'm grateful to him for, I'm grateful for, as Jenny Fest already mentioned, his sense of adventure that he instilled in all of us. I remember when I was maybe 9, I found a picture of him with a koala, and I was shocked because I didn't know you could take pictures with koalas at the zoo. It didn't hit me that that was not at the zoo, it was in Australia. And ever since then, hearing his stories about all of the amazing places he's been, Argentina, India, Kenya, all over the world, just looking at his passport 2 days ago, it blew my mind to see that. So he actually convinced me to work on a cruise ship. I went and I worked on a cruise ship, and I loved exchanging stories with him. And although I think his time was a little more glamorous than what I did, he was always so excited to swap tales with me and share his adventures. And even though, the past 30 years, his adventures were mostly here in Fort Lauderdale or visiting us, he was always so excited, no matter how big or small the adventure was, whether it was going to India or going to Goodwill. He loved his adventures, and I know that all of us are so grateful for him and him instilling that sense of adventure in all of us. Thank you.
9 nibbling nubicons nibbling on gnats. I don't know what a nubicon is, and neither does Google. I wish Dad had told me before he departed on his next adventure what a nubicon was. This poem is just another example of Dad's love for the whimsical and fun. I'm pretty certain we learned it in the car as we left church and headed out for lunch. I'm so happy he taught it to his grandchildren, and pray that they will teach it to their grandchildren too. Wouldn't it be cool to see how many generations that funny 10-line poem will make? And I know it will make him smile. Quinn, I think you're up.
Quinn.
Is it Quinn?
Let's go, Quinn!
Careful about stuff there. Hi, I'm Quinn. I'm one of the granddaughters. Granddad has sent me a bunch of stuff over the years in the mail. One of which is one well known that he shared with a lot of people on how he lived his life so greatly is Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you will become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy.
Beautiful. It's beautiful, Quinn. Dad loved Desiderata, which happened to be written the same year he was born in 1927. He recited this poem often. He recited it as if he were preaching its message. And he was. He knew it was a recipe for happiness, self-assuredness, and peace within. Dad lived his life in concert with Desiderata. Much of the advice Dad offered me in my youth, and as an adult, echoed Desiderata. Dad's advice was almost always good, even if it wasn't what I really wanted to hear. When I was a freshman in high school, I can vividly remember sitting in the front seat of his Toyota Supra as he turned off State Road 84 onto Ravenswood Avenue, and genuinely asking him for advice about a girl I was interested in dating. Without skipping a beat, he advised me that I treat her as I wanted my sisters to be treated, which is great advice, but it probably set me back several years in wanting to date. And it certainly caused a few young ladies to be awfully frustrated with me. And it still makes me laugh 40 years later. Okay, you're next.
Hi. A little sidetrack, but I was just holding my nephew, Eddie G's first great-grandson, and he points at my nose and he's like, "What's that?" And I was like, "That's a nose ring." His immediate response was, "Ew." I'm not the only one with piercings and tattoos. It's kind of common amongst us and the cousins these days, but I was the first one to have an exposed tattoo. And man, did I got some words. And I got a lot of jokes, a lot of math jokes. But it frustrated Granddad so much. He actually, I found out later, he tried to go to the tattoo store and get my name tattooed on him, but because of the blood thinners he was on, they denied him. But that's the kind of man he was. He really did love his family, and he would do anything to protect them and fight for them. I think I'm laugh. So here's a funny poem that he used to do. I need to be able to see here. Sorry. Okay. I had but 50 cents. I took my girl to a fancy ball. It was a social hop. We waited till the folks got out and the music, it did stop. Then to a restaurant we went, the best one on the street. She said she wasn't hungry, but this is what she'd eat. A dozen raw, a plate of slaw, a chicken and a roast, some applesauce, that's not what Google said. Applesauce, asparagus, and soft-shell crabs on toast. A box of stew and crackers too, her appetite was immense. When she called for pie, I thought I'd die, for I had but 50 cents. She said she wasn't hungry and didn't care to eat, but I've got money in my clothes and to bet she can't be beat. She took it in so cozy, she had an awful tank. She said she wasn't thirsty, but this is what she drank. I gotta say, I'm Irish and I can't even do what she's about to do. A whiskey skin, a glass of gin, which made me shake with fear, a ginger pop with rum on top, a shooter, then a beer, a glass of ale and a gin cocktail. She should have had more sense. When she called for more, I fell on the floor, for I had but 50 cents. Of course, I wasn't hungry and didn't care to eat, expecting every moment to be kicked into the street. She said she'd fetch her family round and some night we'd had fun. When I gave the man the 50 cents, this is what he done. He tore my clothes, he smashed my nose, he hit me in the jaw. He gave me a prize, a pair of black eyes, and with me swept the floor. He took me where my pants hung loose and threw me over the fence. Take my advice, don't try it twice if you've got but 50 cents.
Yes, Dad memorized this poem too. Most, if not all of you, have had the pleasure of sitting down for a meal with Dad. Let me tell you about one of my last meals with him before he passed. When I arrived in Florida, he told me he had lost his appetite. After taking him to the VA for a doctor's appointment, he suggested we go to Gigi's waterfront restaurant on Hollywood Beach. He said he wasn't hungry, but he managed to eat a crab cake appetizer, a Caesar salad, a 6-ounce filet, asparagus, and mashed potatoes. I was impressed. When the waiter came to take our plates away, Dad asked what the waiter recommended for dessert. The waiter suggested either the key lime pie or the pecan pie. Dad told him to bring both. Granted, I had some of each, but believe me, Dad held his own. For a guy that had lost his appetite, he sure could put it away. After we left, we drove north on Federal Highway through Dania. It was then he asked me to turn left into Jackson's ice cream parlor. I was stuffed, but somehow he had more room. How about getting me a strawberry milkshake, he asked. And as I got out of the car, he changed his mind. Change that to 3 scoops of strawberry ice cream, please, in a cup. Dad always had a good appetite. The fact that he nearly completed 95 trips around the sun is a contradiction to everything nutritionists advise. He enjoyed fruits and vegetables too, but our dad ate like a teenager his entire life. I think he ate 1 meal a day at McDonald's, Wendy's, or Five Guys. And you can be certain that meal included a milkshake and possibly a fried apple pie. I don't think he ever substituted turkey bacon or turkey sausage for the real thing. He ate cookies, cakes, potato chips, Cracker Jacks, everything, and he rarely washed it down with anything other than a milkshake, a root beer, or a Coca-Cola. He used to wonder why he lived so long. And I always thought to myself, how did he live so long? I know the answer to why. It's because he loved life and being in the moment. He never lost his curiosity, his appreciation for art and music, the wonders of God's creation, or his love for his family and his friends. He lived life as he always advised. Life is to be enjoyed and not endured. When?
Hi. I'm Gwen, and sorry, my eyes are still like a little bit sweaty. But when I first actually heard this poem, I was thinking to myself, like, this is so Granddad. Like, he was always so thoughtful. His perspective on life was so incredibly thoughtful. And when I first heard this poem, I'm like, this is very thoughtful. So, it is. Yes. La Mia Vida. I would fashion carefully. I'm sorry. I would fashion carefully the cup from which I drink my life, for I alone must taste the drops within. Although sorry.
No, you're good.
You got it.
Although Dad recited this to me when I was younger, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I really began to understand its message. The older I've become, the greater I understand how carefully Dad fashioned the cup from which he enjoyed life. He was true to himself. Several years ago, he sent me a note with a quote that summed up how he felt. I just kind of wake up and follow my appetite. I am at a point in my life now where I have the very, very fortunate luxury of pursuing what I want to do, and I don't corrupt that process by thinking about how other people see me. He understood that his journey was a gift from God, and that he was the captain of his soul. From the outpouring of love and support evident by everyone in attendance tonight, and all those that couldn't be here, it is clear that people loved him just as he was. And that is a great lesson for all of us. Mr. Dunleavy?
Oh, it's really a great honor to be here. You know, as I sit there and listen, you know, I find out that it's really not the years in our life that count, it's the life in our years. And Eddie has certainly lived a great, great life. It's you know, it's such a pleasure and a joy. You know, one of the things he wanted me to do was to talk about his 4 questions, which are synonymous, you know, with Eddie G. I remember when he first got it, he wrote him on the back of a little white Allen envelope to me, and he gave it to me, and he said, I write down the answers to these questions every night before I go to bed, you know. And I referred to it constantly. I said, Eddie's 4 questions, Eddie's 4. He said, no. They're not my 4 questions. I got them at Park. You know, that was typical Eddie, deferring something to somebody else. You know, it's like, we know, the world knows, and the world will know forever that the 4 questions are Eddie G's. You know, he was a classic example. He was a great example. He was a great father, grandfather, mentor, poet, hero, sponsor. Everything about Eddie was class. You know, I had the great fortune to be a sponsor. He sponsored me for 37 years, and I would, you know, share, you know, when we give the medallions back and forth. And the only thing I ever had to say about Eddie was that he was class. Say, class never runs scared. He's sure-footed and confident. He can handle whatever comes along. Class has a sense of humor. It shows that a good laugh is the best lubricant for oiling the machinery of human relations. Class never makes excuses. It takes its lumps and learns from past mistakes. Class knows that good manners are nothing more than a series of small, inconsequential sacrifices. Class is real. It can't be faked. Class is comfortable in its own skin. It never puts on airs. Class never tries to build itself up by tearing others down. Class is always up and need not strive to look better by making others look worse. If you have class, you have it made. If you don't have class, no matter what else you have, it doesn't make any difference. Eddie had class.
of kings. And yet I recall the very hour. 'Twas noon by yonder village tower. The wind came briskly up this way, crisping the brook beside the road, and pausing here to set down its load. And shook listlessly 2 petals from that wild rose. I want to share something, also just a little story about my dad that I think most of you can relate to as far as in principle. So my brother Mike and I started a middle school when our parents separated. And there were us there. It was very unfamiliar. We didn't really know anybody. And our dad showed up there every morning when our bus came. So it was really special because he knew that we needed to see him, and he needed to see us. But in God's positioning system, wherever Dad was placed, and whoever he was placed for, he showed up. And I was able to realize that in middle school, that he was always going to be there. And he was, for the rest of our lives. He showed up, and he did that with everybody. And it was a testament to him, and just such a great example. And I'm so grateful for that.
Then pausing here, set down its load of pine scents and shook listlessly 2 petals from that wild rose tree. Awareness. That's what this poem is about, and one of the traits that made Dad so special. He didn't just see things, he studied them. As I reflected on a few minutes ago, he searched for the beauty in what he saw, what he heard, what he felt, what he experienced, what he tasted, and the scent he breathed in. We started this evening off with the poem Laska. The writer described Laska as being alive in every limb, with feeling to the fingertips. And that was Dad, alive in every limb. He often recited this poem, Memory, as it highlighted the importance of awareness. The irony is his mind did not let go 1,000 things. Dates of wars or deaths of kings, or really very much of anything. His memory was keen and his mind was remarkably sharp. Kara?
I think Grandma Glancy must have liked Longfellow because Dad quotes so much of it. In your booklets is a psalm of life, and I'm not going to recite the whole thing. We're already running about an hour behind schedule, and we're coming to its close. But there's one stanza that I'd like to recite from that, and that is the one that he recited most. And sometimes when he was reciting it, I would think that he was reciting it to remind himself. After I recite this stanza, sometime in the future, if you'll look at the stanza afterwards, that's what I thought about my dad. So the stanza Dad would say, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime. And departing, leave behind us footprints in the sands of time.
Guys in the kitchen, if you guys want to start getting those dinner ready, that'd be great.
Hey, Mike, can I say one more word?
Come on.
I'm sorry.
No.
So hello. If you don't remember, my name is Patrick. I am Ed Glancy's great nephew. And I want to come back on the microphone before there's a final word, because I want to leave that to those that are truly closest to him. And you know, my relationship with him, it was very dear to me. And I kind of wanted to paint a picture for those that, you know, couldn't understand what it was for me as a child and become an adolescent, and my view of MG, Uncle Ed. Like, where, imagine being a 15-year-old from a small town, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, you know, and we would vacation together at Ocean Isle Beach, and Uncle Ed would tell these glorious stories of traveling the world and sailing into the port of Hong Kong, seeing, you know, all these buildings and the shimmering nightlight when he's pulling in, and like, it was so captivating to me, and it truly gave me this romanticized version of the world that I had not been exposed to. And I promise you that I'm speaking for, there's a small representative here of the hundreds that have heard his stories at Ocean Isle. And I'm a vessel right now for all of us that we're motivated to see the world. And, you know, I myself, you know, I just shared with you that I've had my struggles, but I also was a college athlete, and I studied abroad in Rome, Italy, partly because of the words that I heard from my Uncle Ed. And I feel it's so important that no matter what stories he was telling, he was more invested to hear about me. And I think that that's the greatest lesson that I took from him, that whatever story you have to tell, the person that you're talking to, their story is more important. And he always made sure to hear my story on top of whatever he had to tell me about and he lived the life that we could only dream to live. And I hope everybody here takes that away from here, that our story is our story. But whoever you're talking to, whoever you're sitting with, whoever you're having lunch with, whoever you're on the phone with, it's more important to hear their story and be a human. And you can actually impact lives. Where, like I said, me in a jail cell, him coming visiting me, impacted me more than you could ever imagine. And it never changed. From the time that I progressed from all of that through my future. So I don't want to rant. I would like to end it with my Uncle Ed taught me that as great as his story was, the person that you're sitting with, their story is the most important one.
You use a glass mirror to see your face. You use works of art to see your soul. Dad loved art, any kind of art really. Paintings, drawings, sculpture, woodwork, ceramic figurines, stained glass lamps, origami, music, poetry, verse, literature. While Dad has always loved art, he became a prolific collector of art in his golden years. If you visited him in his home his last 20 years, you would know what I mean. He loved to go to thrift stores, antique shops, and bookstores in search of something that would catch his eye, his ear, or his mind. He would often say he stayed young by keeping his mind active. He said he had a job to go to every day, and that job was to be out of his house and into the world around him until it was time to go home in the evening. For decades, his typical day looked like this: go to an early morning mass, go to a morning meeting, join his friends for breakfast, poke around town, maybe try his luck at the casino, meet his buddies for lunch, catch another meeting, stop by the Big Apple bookstore on Federal Highway to see what caught his attention. Dad enjoyed a wider range of books than any person I've ever known, and it wasn't even close. He liked every genre, from American and world history to self-help, how to fix diesel engines to romance novels, architectural design to creatures of the sea, philosophy to sports, art history to the history of dogs, how to speak Spanish, and how to be a chef. I truly believe he bought at least one new book home every day for 20 plus years. When he was in his 70s, he learned how to speed read, which really ramped up the consumption of books. Sometimes I would question just how much he had absorbed, and then he would surprise me by just how much he knew about any given subject. When we cleaned out his condo, we returned hundreds of books, and there are still hundreds more. And most of the books had notes, poems, and verse stuffed between the pages. But it wasn't just books he collected 1,000 record vinyls too. I could randomly grab any album and put it on the player, and he would know the tune and sing it if there were he would sing it along if there were words. But it wasn't just books and vinyls. In the afternoon, Dad would visit the thrift stores in search of more treasures. Dad must have purchased at least 100 paintings a year from thrift stores. He would call and describe each one to me, explaining why each one had touched his soul. His condo was full of paintings, stacked 5 to 10 deep along the floor, as the walls had no more room. He laid most of the paintings flat, one on top of the other, in the bedroom. The stacks went from the floor to the ceiling, multiple stacks. Every painting he purchased touched his soul. I'm certain there were over 1,000 when we began to clear them out. There's more. Dad had a collection of sculptures and figurines, the likes of which I've never seen before. Glass, wood, ceramic, brass, steel, clay, paper mache. He had the head of David next to a surfing frog. Monkeys and kangaroos next to a Japanese geisha. A sailing ship next to a cow on a motorcycle. Ceramic angels next to a wooden banjo player. A vast collection of elephants, giraffes, lions, tigers, rabbits, dogs, cats, mice, and nearly every other creature in the animal kingdom. He had dozens of angels, saints, and statues of the Virgin Mary. Lots of globes and artificial floral arrangements to go along with his lemon trees and hoot owls. Birds were everywhere. The point is, Dad found beauty in so many different things, just as he found beauty in so many different people. Tonight I stand before what he treasured most on earth, his family and his friends. In the back room, we have some pieces of Dad's. We ask you to please take a painting or a piece home with you tonight in his memory. It will really help us out. Seriously, please take one home. Edward Martin quotes. Maria Pfister.
He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. He drew a circle that took him in. There is a destiny that makes us brothers. None goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own. The few little years we spend on earth are only the first scene in a divine drama that extends into eternity.
Baker, I got my driver's license.
All right.
Stopped in the Walmart.
Tip, why don't you just turn around?
Oh, stand up, all right.
How you doing?
Sure. Right up on this.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up for Eddie. My name is Ladislaus W. Handel. I'm a sentimental slob. At times I might just tear up, and other times I'll just stumble. I was a friend of Eddie's, and I came here to praise him, but not to bury him. We went to school at Johnstown Catholic High School and played football together from 1941 to 45. But I lost track of him after that, and I don't know what happened to him. But the only thing is I remember, well, let's see here. Are there very many people here from Johnstown?
Raise your hand.
Oh, how about, what's the other name of that town? If you just remember then, Johnstown Catholic High School played football with Eddie from 1941 to 45. Now, Eddie was a quiet, mischievous sort of guy. He hung out with a bunch of characters named Paul Pappy Roots, Larry Hoot Knees, and Squeaky Gallus, along with other fellows. Squeaky owned an old car and was permitted to drive to school since he lived a long way from school with no bus service. Every noon, Eddie and a car full of those students piled into the car to eat their lunch and sandwich. When it was time to go back to school, they parked the car, and when they opened the door, a big cloud of cigarette smoke come out. And I believe that was a sight. One day, Pappy Ruth came in late, and Mother Vincentia was sitting him on and counting to him. The conversation was, "You are late?" "Yes, I know, but one of our hired help didn't come in, and I had to help to milk 6 cows, feed the animals, do other chores." Sister Vincentia got up close to Pappy, as she always did to everybody. She said, "You had to do those chores?" He says, Pappy with a very straight face said, "Yes, sister." And then she on the spot absolved him from any detention. Pappy did no such thing. He just overslept and missed his ride to school. I played with Eddie. He was a quarterback and I played fullback. We did okay for a couple of kids. In one game, we ran 8 straight same plays. I always followed our big tackle, Jim Goose Chase, the only black player on the team. And on the 8th time, I think he fell on my arm. I was hurt, so we took out a timeout, and 2 other kids took Eddie in my place. I ended up with a broken arm, and on the very next play, the new kids combined to a pass play for a touchdown. They outsmarted the other team. I finished the season with a cast on my arm. I grew up on a farm in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. We would butcher a hog every fall. One year, Mom said, "Why don't you invite your buddies up for supper?" I did, and we had a feast. Had fresh buttered pork chops, fresh smoked kielbasa, mashed potatoes, fresh made butter, a host of condiments and pastries such as rashki and kolache. Plus, at the end of the meal, we had a glass of homemade elderberry wine. Such was a good still future. Upon leaving, Mom stopped Eddie, and she took a kind of shine to him. Later, she told me Eddie was a very nice and polite boy. I'll never forget that. Mom was a good judge of character. Eddie was one. I joined the service after forging my mother's name. But the Army checked with Mom about the signature. She finally okayed my request and said, "Go." She said, "Joe, my older brother, was in the Merchant Marines, and the next older brother, John, he was in the Marines also." I went after mid-semester of high school. Eddie and several of his cohorts, right after graduation, went to Pittsburgh to join the Navy. They say the Navy taught their recruits how to swim. The Army, we learned how to run. The Army soldiers used this short ditty about the Navy uniform. Bell-bottom trousers. Yeah. Bell-bottom trousers, buttons made of brass, looser on the bottom, tighter on the ass. They never could catch us, so we never fought. No fights. About 2 years ago, I was invited to a short speech of my grandkids. I was asked several questions, and one is, why did you enlist in the Army before being drafted? My answer was, I was a loner. I did not have anybody dependent on me. I figured if I enlisted, I may save somebody that had a family, kids, a wife, and whoever, and who should not go to the service, and maybe become a casualty. My next encounter with Eddie was on September 30th of 2000 at our 55th class reunion back in Johnstown, PA. We were in church when the people were still coming in, and there was this dapper-looking gentleman, escorted by a handsome younger man. They sat in a pew a few seats away. All around me, the people were asking, who is that guy? After Mass, we found out it was Eddie Glancy and his son, escorted. After I visited Eddie, I would come down to Florida with my daughters to visit my daughters and granddaughters. On our last visit was January 2021. I think I can go with this. I've been here most of the day. Now for just a little bit of nostalgia, I would call it trivia. How many of you remember the Big Mouth in World War II? You remember much about it? Okay, it says here. Walter Winchell reading the Good Morning News on the radio. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America. The Japs are getting their behinds kicked out of the Pacific Islands, and the Germans are being bombed out by the bombers. The Andrews sisters, Patty, Maxine, and Laverne. This was for the kids in Nebraska. If you wonder where the yellow went, when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. It sounded much better when the girls sang it. Then it came to Jason and Sanborn coffee jingle. And then, oh, gentlemen, would you look down at your pants, the long-haired, long-legged pants. You look down in here, you don't see a cuff, do you? You know where that is? The extra cuff was used to make clothes for the military. Now comes the rationing. Coupons for everything. Gas, autos, ABC, stickers for 3, 5, and 7 gallons. Stickers and coupons for butter, coffee, sugar, meat, all. It was a tough time, I tell you. But I'm glad we lived through it. There were special entertainments held to sell savings bonds. If you bought a bond, you got a ticket. All sorts of entertainments on the program. One I remember was Edgar Bergen and his horny sidekick Charlie McCarthy, a wooden dummy. At one performance, Charlie didn't show up. They randomly picked Eddie up and he sat on Edgar's lap. After this performance, Jimmy Durante came up and told his story. The reason Charlie McCarthy didn't show up was the termites were bothering him. I got a million of these. You remember what LSMFT means? No takers? Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. How about the Lucky Strike change from green to white? Yeah, from green to white. Well, Lucky Strike green went to the war, and in came the white. There's enough of WW2 news. We lived out the war. Eddie, Pappy, Hoot, Squeaky, and yours truly. to Eddie. May he rest in peace in the arms of the Lord through eternity. I see you. Excuse me. And now it's time for me for my evening medication. 2 fingers of Jack Daniels and a Heineken chaser. Good night. I missed out on Eddie all the time from 1945 until the 2002 meeting. I didn't know Eddie was such a...
Looks like the battery's done. That might just push you.
Wonderful,
Oh, I know.
Mr. Hansel. I'm making an executive decision that we're going to finish this while we're eating. So if you're 70 and above, would you please get in line to get some dinner? And please hurry, because we're hungry. Okay, don't everybody run.
readings, if that's okay, just so that Dad's grandkids and others have a chance to continue to honor him for a little bit longer.
Hi, Memory. I'm going to be reading the poem Little Things. I'm going to be reading the poem Little Things. Little drops of water, little grains of sand, make the mighty ocean and the beauteous land. Little deeds of kindness, little words of love, make our earth an Eden like the heavens above. And the little moments, humble they may be, make the might ages of eternity.
John, can you come up and join me for a second? John Wells. John and I are going to do a recital of one of Dad's favorite poems, If by Rudyard Kipling. Advice from a father to his child. And John and I and Mike, we're three of his sons. And we're grateful that John could do it. If you keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise.
If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools.
Hey Todd, can you come join us? Thanks, buddy. Todd and John came to Ocean Isle Beach with us for many years. Many of our cousins from Johnstown and from Virginia know them quite well. And they are brothers. We are brothers and sisters. Todd doesn't have his glasses. The truth is, I'm not sure Todd can read.
You guys can do this. Put your head farther away.
Hold it stand.
You can't make it out.
If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and semen to serve you, turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you, except the will which says to them, hold on.
If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much.
You look good.
If you can fill the unforgiving minute. 60 seconds. Yours is everything that's in it. And which is more to be a man and son. Beautiful job.
from John and Todd for the next several years, guys. John and Todd are family, and they are brothers and sisters. But I know I want to be brief because there's a lot going on, but I want to talk about another family. Every Thanksgiving with Dad, we would have Thanksgiving at the Marriott or the Hyatt. And it was an amazing, bountiful buffet, and we loved it. And every Thanksgiving we were joined by people we'd never met sometimes. Colorful, vibrant people. Doctors and judges and surf bums and you name it. An amazing cast of characters. And that was Dad's family, and it grew every year. His brothers and sisters in AA made his life so vibrant and elevated him above what he could have been without them. And they didn't just, you guys didn't just elevate Dad's life, you elevated ours too. And we're so grateful for all of you. And thank you.
So, do you want to,
Ann, is now good, or do you want a little bit longer? Can you rally the troops?
Everyone's ready to join me.
As ready can be.
come on.
Good morning.
Come on. So, would you take this mic and would you explain it to our guests? Deborah's blessing.
I'm just going to stand to the side of the room. You're going to sing.
We're going to sing. Sing the best you can.
We Glancies would like to sing an Irish blessing to all of you in memory of our uncle. Ready?
We can do this.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face.
Okay, the good news is we have two final things on the program, and I think we can get through them rather quickly. This is my last one. The following was written by Ed Glancy. When I die, I am not going to have an underground apartment. No siree. I'm going to have a world under sea where the big and small fish gather, and the dolphins and turtles come up for air and bring it down to my spirit, giving it energy to lift my spirit. And you know, Mike, I have always tried to keep my spirits up. I didn't have to try hard because I always had Kara, Jenny, you, and Joe, and all my beautiful grandchildren to do that for me. Love, Dad. One final thing.
Lord, please make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hope, let us sow life. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. And where there is despair, hope. Where there is sadness, joy. And where there is darkness, light. O divine Master, grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Thank you all for being here. I'm so glad you're here. We do have some dessert, some cake, delicious cake that a friend of Dad's baked, so we hope you'll have a slice and be safe on your journeys home, and know that you being here touches our heart in a very meaningful way. Thank you.
Hi again. I'll make this quick, but this is my husband, Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor!
Trevor was a big fan of Energy. I'm sure you all know this, but he was a profound lover of music. So much so that it changed my entire course of my life. What we do is we write music, we play music, we love it, and for me that stems from him. So in honor of him and some of his wisdom, Trevor and I wrote a song called Fast Steady, and we would like to share it with you guys tonight, if you are so willing. It's a bit more upbeat, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
It's on Spotify and Apple Music, check it out.
Yeah, so you can available for you guys.
there it is. Pat, I'm so embarrassed. This came to my house. So I opened it. And I thought somebody was writing an envelope for you. It was just in a hurry. And so they wrote your name. This was supposed to be for your Aunt Patty. And it went to my address. It's a thank you card. And I opened it. I took all the cash out. I'm so sorry.
Wait, did you get one too?
Yes, I'm sure I did. But like, Mom's so sad I'm celebrating with my dad and me right now. But I wanted to bring this to you because. So give this to Patricia because I feel so bad.